A trigger is an event or a conversation that invokes an emotion and a feeling in your body. Sometimes it's a happy one, but I think most times when we think of a trigger and what triggers us, it's usually related to something unhappy. What these triggers do is hit a pain point somewhere within that is usually related to our beliefs about our worthiness or the beliefs we have about being not good enough. We feel it in our body. We feel it in our body and by the emotion it invokes, but we don't always know what to do with those feelings and emotions or even have the awareness of why we are reacting the way we are. This episode is dedicated to helping you understand your triggers, what fires you up, and what you can do with them. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Heal Your Love Wounds podcast. I am your host, Iris Sariani. A significant lesson I have learned is that wherever you go, there you are, which basically means that just because you move on to a new relationship or move across the country or get a job with different people, if you haven't looked at what gets you emotional and fired up and triggered, you will continue to encounter the opportunities to help you see what's buried deep beneath. So let's talk about the things that get you fired up. Sometimes there's small things that cause a small reaction, and those things are quite easy to push aside and we can easily ignore those ones. But other times they're big things that cause a bigger reaction, and those ones are not so easy to suppress and ignore. In both cases, we suppress and ignore any unhealed pain, but the right people will always show up to help show you what you need to look at. They say or do something that triggers a reaction, and almost all of the time, it will trigger how you feel about yourself, specifically around your feelings of worthiness and whether you are feeling like you are good enough. I'll share a personal example. When I first started out as an entrepreneur in the coaching arena, I started out with one of my sisters. We had started a self-help business. She was leading the way of our business because she had much more experience than I did in business, and I really trusted her. She had a vision for what we would create, and immediately I had my own ideas about how I wanted to contribute to the business. I had a specific pocket of people that I wanted to help, which were parents of teens, because at the time my kids were teenagers too. I wanted to offer my experiences as a parent to other parents who were perhaps having the same challenges that I was having with my kids at the time. So as we were building the business and putting our website together, I would write pieces. I love to write, and so I was really happy and proud of what I sent her to be uploaded to our website. But almost every single time, the feedback was the same. It's good, but. Nobody wants to hear it's good, but. And she would send me back her edits, which looked like complete rewrites that didn't sound like me at all. I remember how this made me feel. I felt like what I had to offer was never good enough for her and that it was not being worthy of being on the website. I also knew how defeated and angry I felt, but I didn't know what to do about how I was feeling. She really intimidated me, so it was very difficult for me to open up, to be honest with her, to tell her what I was thinking and how I was feeling and how her "it's good but" made me feel. And eventually I left the business. I pushed down my hurt by making it her fault. I didn't have the awareness at the time that this situation wasn't even about what she was doing to me that made me feel horrible about myself. It was life trying to help me see my own worth and know that whether I worked with her or not, I had something valuable to contribute. It took me a bit of time to see the situation for what it was, but in the meantime, the universe continued to give me all of the experiences, the people, and the events that would continue to trigger my I'm not good enough pain. And maybe you can relate in some way in your own life. When we aren't aware that life experiences happen for us so that we can grow, instead of thinking that our life and the people in it are all crap, we look for ways to cope because we don't know what to do with how we feel by being triggered. So what do? We look for ways to cope. And in that particular instance, it was very easy for me to deflect my own pain and make her wrong, make it her fault. It was all about what she was doing to me rather than looking inwards and seeing what was there for me. And the more we ignore and suppress, the more intense the experiences become, and the more we look for ways to cope. We all have different things that we do to help us cope with pain, but we don't want to go through life just coping. We want to be thriving in our life. And we also want to have the tools so that we know what to do when we're triggered and that we learn to balance out our feelings and emotion and heal the parts of us that do feel unworthy. And it's not an easy process. That has been my experience. And my process took me well over 20 years, but that doesn't mean that your process has to take that long. So as you're going through your life, doing what you do, managing and coping the best you can, if you still have stuff that you haven't worked through, you will continue to be presented with the people and situations that will show you what needs to be looked at. I did a social post the week before this episode, and it said, "Be brave enough to face your fears. Your fears are part of you, which means you can't run away from yourself. When you stop running, they stop chasing you, and you can reach a harmonious union and balance and the freedom that you're ultimately looking for." That is true about our triggers. A lot of times we don't know what to do with how we're feeling. If you were to think about this and think back to your childhood, were you taught what to do with how you were feeling and how you were expressing your emotion? I grew up in an era where parents would say, "Stop your crying or I'll give you something to cry about." So on the heels of that, how do we ever learn what to do when we do have feelings and when we do have emotion? What we learn to do is to shut down and to suppress it. We don't know, we don't have the tools. We just learn how to shut down our feelings and emotions because we don't know what else to do with them. So if we haven't learned to express ourselves and learn that it is safe to have feelings and emotions, then we don't have the tools for doing that as we get into adulthood. And so we are constantly being presented with people and conversations and different things that are triggering us only to show us the very part of us that we need to turn around and look at instead of running away from ourselves. And the more we run away, the more we look to the next thing that will help us cope. And when that doesn't work, then we up the ante on the coping. And sometimes things can really get out of hand, and we find ourselves in a position where we've developed some type of a dependency on a person, on a substance, to an activity that's not healthy for us. And no one thing is bad for any of us, but anything done in excess takes us out of our balance and it takes us farther away from ourselves. So I would like to offer you some ways that you can stop running away from yourself, because running is really painful. It is really tiring and it's really exhausting. Your worthiness fears and your not good enough fears and your not lovable enough fears are relentless. They don't get tired. They don't get exhausted. They're just there, and when we do all of this running away, they keep chasing. It's like a cat chasing a cat. They just run away. And all of your fears, they just don't go away. We have no other choice but to stop running if we want to feel better. We need to turn around and look at what it is we're running from, what is being triggered within us, and sitting with that damn uncomfortable feeling. And sometimes that uncomfortable feeling is really painful. That's the hard part, because we don't like to feel uncomfortable. We don't like to feel pain. It's just not a good feeling. But the coping mechanisms that we use, that's not a good feeling either. All of our triggers also are part of our past, and they no longer need to be part of our current and future reality. Without doing this work, your growth and your life are stunted. So let's look at some of the ways of dealing with your worthiness triggers. The very first step is to notice that you're being triggered. Notice what happens when your blood starts to boil. What causes your road rage? What causes you to get so irritatingly frustrating and annoyed at another person? Can you notice when you find yourself having a pretty good day and then all of a sudden you have an interaction which in some way changes your mood? You notice that you start feeling bad about yourself. So can you notice when you find yourself having a pretty good day and then all of a sudden you have an interaction of some type and your mood drops? And can you notice how your negative self-talk kicks in? In that split second, instead of running away to that thing you do or exploding all over the place when something triggers you, can you just take a breath and see the whole interaction as if you were someone who happened to pop in to take a peek at what's going on? It's like detaching from the situation. So can you just detach for a moment and breathe? A lot of times we just ignore what's happening and we don't take just a moment just to notice what has happened. We automatically want to go to something else so that we don't have to look at it. Then what would it look like if you just sat with how you were feeling for a few minutes? Maybe you can grab a notebook and write down what you're feeling instead. The thing about writing, I know a lot of people don't like to write, but the thing about writing is it helps you get your thoughts onto paper and out of your mind. And when you do this, you stop yourself from ruminating over the thoughts that you're having and what happened and how it's making you feel and anything else that happens to come up. So write those thoughts down onto paper and get them out of your mind. It helps to diffuse the situation and bring you back down into a more balanced state. So when you first start to write it all down, it looks a lot like anger and blame and shame and guilt. And that's okay. That's all part of the process. Anger, blame, shame, and guilt, although they're low vibration feelings and emotions, they're all feelings and emotions that you're having. So it's okay to have them. Can you just be okay with whatever comes up and give yourself permission to have every feeling and emotion and not run away from yourself? At this point, you're not looking for any answers. You're just giving yourself permission to just be and feel, perhaps for the first time ever. I find when you take a heartbeat and be with what you're feeling instead of trying to run away from it, when you let yourself be with the experience, oftentimes it will diffuse itself. The intensity of the emotion will start to diffuse, and you come back into balance with yourself. When you practice being with what you feel, you can start asking yourself deeper questions such as, why did they or this upset me so much? Your external world is a reflection of your inner world. So when things come up from the experiences that you have, it is life's way of trying to help you heal and know yourself at a much deeper level. And so when you tune in and start asking yourself, why do I get so upset? Why do I keep having these same experiences? Why do I keep having the same type of relationships? Why do people always walk all over me? Why do I? Why do I? Why do I? That's a very powerful question, and it takes you into a more inner reflective part of you, and you will start to come up with answers about things from your past, different experiences that you had throughout your life, and what to do next. When you practice being with what you feel, you can start to ask yourself some deeper questions. And some deeper questions might look like or sound like, why do they always upset me? Why do I always feel this way around this person? Why do I always have the same type of people who don't respect me? Why do I always surround myself with people or have the same experiences that get me so upset? And those questions will take you into a deeper part of yourself. And your external world really is a reflection of your inner world. So when things come up from the experiences that you're having, it is life's way of trying to help you heal and to know yourself and your worthiness at a much deeper level. Because life isn't happening to you. The experiences of your life aren't happening to you. They're helping you see yourself and to know yourself and to know that you're lovable, to know that you're worthy, to know that you're good enough. I hope you found this episode helpful. My work is helping women heal the pain from their past. And if you would like to know more about me and my work, you can visit my website at irissariani.com or follow me on Instagram. And until the next episode, be brave, forgive yourself and others, live big, trust yourself, make the tough decisions even though it may break your heart. Trust that what and who leaves your life is meant to leave. Have faith that the space that's left will be filled with new experiences and opportunities that expand your heart and your life.